I've saved up over 120K and I'm only 23 years old. I wanted to share 3 tips about how I did it, and hopefully you can apply those to your life too and get similar results as me. The first one is easily the most important, and this will definitely have the biggest impact on whether something like this is achievable in your 20s. And that is to be very, 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 very careful of deciding to go to school or not. I know way too many people who have spent 4 years in college and university. They got their degree and they didn't even end up doing anything with it. And a lot of people think about the money portion of it, where you're not earning in those years, obviously because you're full-time at school, not at a job, but also just the time sink. 4 years of your life where even if you were working minimum wage, you could have saved up still plenty of money by then, especially if you're living at home. I went to community college for a couple semesters and I was just trying stuff for the sake of trying it, seeing if anything clicked, and it didn't. I didn't like anything I tried. So the important thing that I want to get across to you is I didn't just pick something random, stick through it, and get a degree just because everybody else did. I didn't do very well and I dropped out of that. I stopped going to that community college and I just picked a trade. I went on a local trade school website and looked at things I found interesting, and I saw welding. I just sounded the coolest to me, so that's what I picked. To get your red seal in Canada, I like to call the red seal is pretty much a bachelor's degree. It takes about 4 years to achieve, and it's kind of the same thing as a bachelor's degree, but just trade-wise. So I didn't waste those 4 years in community college or university because everybody else did it. I made a decision to go join the trade, and my schooling, I want to just quickly say, over the 4 years that I've gone to welding school, only about a year of that time was actually spent at school, maybe a year and 4 months or something like that. The rest of that I was working, so I was making money that whole time. And that's the big thing that a lot of people don't get, is they're not making anything while they're going to regular school for a degree, but when I went the trade route, I was able to make a little bit of money while I was learning. And that was a huge boost because it helped me buy the things I needed to buy, and I got that extra investment boost from the time in the market at an earlier age. So that's the first one I wanted to get across, was to just be very careful with if you decide to go and get a proper degree from a university or a college. And I'm not saying don't do it, because it's definitely worth it if you pick something that matters to you and you'll actually use. You just need to be very careful of getting it just for the sake of getting it, because that's what is the normal thing to do these days. So that's definitely the most important one I wanted to get out of the way right away. The second thing is invest your money. Don't just have your money sitting away in a savings account. And I learned that pretty early. I think I was 19 when I started to invest, and it was just all through self-research. It wasn't anything risky, but getting any percentage gain is better than having your money sitting in a savings account doing nothing for you. In fact, losing its value over time. And time in the market is so valuable, especially for us young people in our 20s. That's like the superpower. That's the one thing we have on our side, is time. And the longer you can have your money in the markets, even if it doesn't have to be a lot, just getting into the idea of putting your money to use will be invaluable, and it's probably a habit you'll continue for the rest of your life. It's been a big part of my early 20s, and it's given me a boost of $30,000, like just from my appreciation in the markets. So technically, if I were just only saving this whole time, I still wouldn't have hit 100K yet. And that's about a little bit over 4 years of working. I worked part-time in high school, but that didn't bring in very much money. But that's besides the point. Just study investing. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm not going to tell you what to invest in because that's for you to figure out, same way I did. And I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't want to give you advice and have you lose money or anything like that. But there's plenty of safe investments that you can do where you don't need to be so worried about losing your money. There's always risk, but it's also risky just having your money sitting away doing nothing in a bank account. So yeah, that's the second point I wanted to cover. Third point is super simple, but it's not easy for a lot of people, and that's just spending money on stupid stuff all the time. I still live with my parents, and I live in a very high cost of living place, and it would be stupid of me to move out right now when I don't have to. And my parents are supportive of that, and I'm very grateful for that. But there's a lot of people my age in the exact same situation. They're still living with their parents, and they're in debt. They're in the negatives of net worth, which is, I think that's very embarrassing, because unless you're paying out of your own pocket to go to school, which I commend you, is very honorable thing to do, and I know that it will pay off for you one day for the type of person that works hard. But I've had people who've had their schooling paid for them, and they're still in debt because they're buying stuff all the time. They're not working at a consistent job or a consistent career, and like there's really no reason to be spending money on stupid stuff. Like, most common one obviously is probably alcohol on the weekends, people going out and partying all the time. That's like, those bills can add up, and I'm not really in that group of people that does those things, but I know of a lot of people who do. And a few $100s a weekend easily, and you add that up, and that is just negatives over negative going every year. And when you add that up over a year, that's like a ton of money. Like I said, if you invested all that money instead, imagine the place you would be in like a few years' time if you were just cutting out all that useless crap. Because I'm not going to pretend that I'm some saint and don't spend money on random stuff sometimes. I do. But I really try and make sure if I'm spending money, it's like investing in myself as well some way. I don't consider buying books a waste. I spend money on books, and I don't even really look at the price for it. But I consider that as an investment in my education. So it doesn't sting as much when I see my credit card bill at the end of the month. And by the way, pay off your credit card bills in full every month. And if you're not, you can't afford to be buying the things you're buying. But that's besides the point. Spend your money on essentials, and you'll be good. I'm not saying don't ever spend any of the money you earn, because what would life be if you weren't able to spend the money you've worked hard to get? I'm just saying, don't make silly spending a habit, because it gets out of control for a lot of people, and it sets them back heavily in these early years where, like I said earlier, your money does a lot of lifting for you just because of the time frame. We're so young, and our money has so much time to work for us, whether we invest in ourselves or invest in the stock market, things like that. But those are just quick 3 tips I wanted to bring up, and if you follow those even slightly, I'm sure you can get ahead of a lot of the people these days, because there are a lot of people in bad financial situations, and it's not just because of the economy these days. I mean, that's a big part, but a lot of it is on the people and the decisions they're making. So if you make more right decisions than you do wrong ones, you're going to get ahead of a lot of people. Thanks.